Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely reframe how you look at property management. Forget the old stereotype of a glorified janitor just showing up to fix a leaky faucet. We are talking about mastering 4 distinct, highly technical disciplines that are absolutely crucial to running multi-million-dollar assets right here in the District of Columbia. Ready? Let's dive in.
To pull off this high-stakes balancing act, juggling physical maintenance, financial strategy, and some really strict legal compliance, a truly effective property manager has to wear 4 very different hats. So here's our agenda for today. First, the master plan. 2, the money matrix. 3, the physical beast. And 4, the DC rulebook.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the master plan. This is where the manager steps in as the strategist. Their main job here is to deeply understand exactly what the property owner's goals are and then map out a long-term game plan to hit the property's highest and best possible use.
You see, to a strategist, properties are basically living organisms. They have a totally predictable life cycle, starting from raw land, moving through development, and eventually hitting decline. Now, the property manager usually steps into the picture right at the occupancy and operations phase, and from that exact moment, their daily mission is to vigorously fight off those bottom 2 stages, decline and obsolescence.
Now, obsolescence isn't just about regular physical wear and tear. I mean, a property can become functionally obsolete simply because it has single-pane windows that waste a ton of energy. Or it can become economically obsolete if a major employer suddenly packs up and leaves the neighborhood. The strategist is constantly evaluating the property's strengths against local competitors to stave off this obsolescence and keep the building profitable for as long as humanly possible.
Moving right along to Section 2, the money matrix. Here, we take off the strategist hat and put on the accountant hat. We're diving into the strict financial metrics and rigorous reporting that literally determine an investment's ultimate survival.
Tracking the financial health of a property means watching every single dollar. You always start with the absolute maximum rent you could collect if the building was perfectly full. That's your gross potential rental income. Then you add in expense reimbursements and miscellaneous income. And yes, that means counting literal quarters from the laundry and vending machines. From there, you subtract any money lost to empty units or bad debt. What you're left with? Your effective gross income. That is the real money you actually have to work with.
Okay, let's test your financial intuition with a quick pop quiz. Imagine we have 2 differently sized buildings. Building A has a much smaller total expense bill of $360,000, while Building B comes in with a massive $855,000 expense bill. At first glance, which one of these actually operates more efficiently?
Well, this brilliantly illustrates exactly why accountants don't just look at the raw totals. The answer shows us the sheer power of calculating costs on a per square foot basis. Building B actually wins this one. It runs at an operating cost of just $4.28 per square foot, compared to Building A's $4.80. So even though Building B is much larger, it's fundamentally a leaner, far more efficient machine. A huge skill when wearing this accountant hat is clearly drawing the line between everyday operating expenses and major capital expenditures. Operating expenses are the things happening daily, weekly, or monthly, like trash removal or landscaping. Capital expenditures, on the other hand, are those rare, big-ticket items like a brand new roof or a boiler system. These extend the building's useful life, they're depreciated over time for taxes, and, crucially, they require the manager to carefully fund reserve escrow accounts years in advance. So, let's look at how all this builds into the ultimate formula in commercial real estate. By relentlessly lowering those daily operating expenses we just talked about, the manager increases the net operating income, or NOI. And here's the magic. Because a property's investment value equals its NOI divided by the capitalization rate, increasing that NOI directly, and I mean directly, spikes the property's overall market value.
Just to ground this formula in some staggering reality for you, let's say a manager finds a mere $825 a month in operational savings, maybe just by swapping out some old lighting for LEDs. If that building is valued at a 10% cap rate, that manager has instantly created $100,000 in brand new property value for the owner. No joke. Just by saving a few $100 a month. Now on to Section 3, the physical beast. To actually hunt down those operational savings, the manager has to swap hats again, this time putting on the engineer hat. In this role, they treat the physical building like a massive, living, breathing beast that demands constant care. Because this
physical beast suffers from constant aging, the manager fights back with a rigorous diet and exercise routine, better known as preventive maintenance. They aren't just waiting around to fix things when they break. No, they are proactively upgrading the high SEER-rated HVAC units, continuously changing belts and filters, and installing electronic ballasts. They are aggressively seeking out utility improvements with rapid payback periods to generate the exact kind of savings we were just talking about.
Of course, sometimes the beast requires a specialist. When that happens, a great manager doesn't just call the first plumber they find online. They meticulously source contractors through a very strict protocol. They'll draft up detailed requests for proposals, require competitive bidding to guarantee pricing power, and perform mandatory inspections during the actual work, before the drywall goes up and hides all the pipes, not just a quick glance at the very end. The absolute crucial point here is that vigilant physical maintenance isn't just about making the lobby look nice or fixing a drippy faucet. It is high-stakes risk management. Keeping floors repaired and electrical panels inspected keeps your tenant safe, prevents catastrophic mechanical failures, and ultimately shields the property owner from devastating legal liability and massive insurance claims.
And hey, speaking of legal liability, that brings us perfectly to Section 4, the DC Rulebook. Our fourth and final hat is the legal scholar. Because if you're operating in Washington, D.C., simply keeping the building physically standing and financially profitable, that's not going to be enough. You have to navigate some incredibly strict local regulations. The district demands absolutely flawless compliance from its property managers. We're talking securing specific real estate commission licenses just to legally operate. They have to ensure valid certificates of occupancy are secured for specific uses, frame and prominently display housing business licenses right out in the open, and in many cases, legally register themselves as the property manager with the local police precinct. The city's rulebook is so deep, it actually dictates the building's physical temperature. The manager is held to a strict, non-negotiable timeline where heating equipment has to be capable of maintaining a minimum of 70 degrees from mid-October all the way to mid-May. Plus, they have to operate within rigid, mandated time windows just to get their annual furnace and boiler inspections completed and properly filed with the city. You really can't miss a beat.
And it gets more complex. If they are managing residential units, they have to expertly navigate the Rental Housing Act of 1985. This is the law that dictates rent control limits across the district, generally capping allowable automatic annual rent adjustments to the Consumer Price Index plus 2%. They have to make absolutely sure every single unit in their portfolio is either properly registered with the Rental Accommodation Division or legally proven to be exempt. So bringing it all together to the ultimate goal, maximizing ROI. Wearing all four of these intense hats, the strategists planning the future, the accountant tracking every dime, the engineer maintaining the physical beast, and the legal scholar keeping everyone out of court, it all funnels down to one single, overarching prize. It all culminates in maximizing the owner's return on investment. When you combine all four of those disciplines, you get true, real-world investment clarity. Take this scenario, for example. By looking at the pure cash flow relative to the initial down payment, a savvy property manager can actually prove to an investor that a $3.5 million medical office building dramatically outperforms a $5 million hotel, yielding a solid 13.7% return.
So the next time you walk into a flawlessly running office building or a beautiful apartment complex, don't just notice the shiny clean floors. Take a second and ask yourself, as they juggle these four hats, what incredible hidden value is the property manager extracting from the walls around you? And more importantly, if they aren't wearing those hats, how much value are they quietly losing? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I'll see you next time.